Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Dead or Alive 5 Last Round video. In this video we're actually going to be taking a look at the resurrected Rydo and the guest character Mai. Now, with Rydo, the reason they give why he has like these cybernetic implants and he looks so weird with like his robot arm is Rydo actually, in the storyline of Dead or Alive, died. And with technology or something, they brought him back to life. And now you'll see Ein here. He's wearing the weird black Santa Claus costumes. I guess they were supposed to be like naughty or nice, and they're like the bad Santas or something. I don't know. I think the whole thing was kind of weird to have black Santa Claus costumes. Heck, I even thought green Santa Claus costumes were weird. But when Dead or Alive 5 Last Round came out, Hanoko was like the big featured character in the game, and then Rydo was released not too long after. And I can remember people being like, oh, well, Rydo is just another character who copies other characters' moves. What's the whole point of that? And now the actual costume that Kasumi is wearing is a tie-in with Ragnarok Odyssey Ace, which I think was released on PlayStation 3, and I know it was also released on PlayStation Vita, because I actually have that version. And now the funny thing to think of in the Dead or Alive games is that the last time that Virtual Fighter characters were playable on the PC was actually Virtual Fighter 2, since Virtual Fighter 3, 4, and 5 never got a PC version. So, they were never playable up until now. And I probably mentioned it in one of my other videos, but that beach stage we were fighting in was called the Zac Island Stage, which was actually a free download at one point for one of the earlier Dead or Alive games. And it was actually featured in the actual game contents. And now, if you didn't see my Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate video, I'll say the same thing I said with Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. The Dead or Alive 5 Last Round includes a lot of downloadable content on the disc if you got the disc version, or if you got the like full digital version. Because the game, in North America at least, was available as a physical disc for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It was available two ways for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. You could either buy Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate and install the update patch, or you could buy a full digital version. And of course, for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, you could buy a full digital version as well. Now, a lot of Rydo's moves are similar to his like original moveset, but he does have a lot of like added moves and a lot of crazy things that he can do in the game that he didn't have before. And now, if you watched my last video where both of those were actually done in hard mode, these characters I'm actually not as good at, and I didn't start doing hard mode gameplays until like I was halfway through. So both of these gameplays you're going to be seeing in this video are actually just done in normal mode. But the one thing I do have to say in Dead or Alive 5 is, if you play anything below normal, honestly, it's too easy, especially the very easy mode. You might as well not even, like, use half of your controller. It's so easy. And that's one thing I definitely have to say with the Dead or Alive moves, the Dead or Alive games, is that they really did make these stages really involved. And you'll notice that Rydo's, like, right arm is, like, completely just, like, robotic. And as you can see from the intro of Naotora here, there is no OMG physics mode on right now, so everything doesn't move nearly as much. And that's one thing I have to say about Naotora. She has a lot of really fast moves, so if you're facing like a slower character like Bass, and especially if you were playing like against a human, a lot of her moves make it very hard to beat her. And just like with most of the male characters, Rydo didn't actually receive all that many costumes. Most of them were just like color variations on what he already has. And some of them, which is kind of weird, his skin's like a different color. Like maybe they painted him or something. I think that's kind of weird. Like in the one costume, it's like, instead of being gray, it's brown. And then you see Leon here, who was an addition in Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate, is wearing another one of those silly black Santa costumes. And now this is one of those stages with a lot of the interactive elements, if you will. But what was funny, I remember when Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate came out, everyone was thinking, oh, well, this will be the last version of the game. And then, of course, the Ultimate version, there was Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. And I do remember some people were saying, oh, well, what if they release another Dead or Alive Ultimate game, another Dead or Alive game after Last Round, because they could call it Laster Round or something. Because that's one thing that really lost the attention of a lot of, like, I would say a lot of more casual fighting game fans, because if you're just like a casual fighting game fan, you wouldn't really care much for all the downloadable content. You really have to be a devoted fan, and I can even say myself, being a Dead or Alive fan for many years, I kind of lost interest with all the downloadable content after a while, and I just honestly stopped buying anything except for the regular characters. And then even with later games, I stopped caring about the regular characters because you'd have like a $100 season pass and you get one character. Now if you at least got 2 or 3, that'd be worth it, but one? And then just a bunch of costumes, which they used to include with the games. But what I was saying before with Kasumi in the earlier stage, like this one with Phase 4, until the music started playing, I couldn't tell that that was Phase 4. I thought it was just regular Kasumi. And that was one thing I was glad about in a lot of these gameplays, is like, a lot of the new characters I faced off against, so if I didn't end up doing what I had done here, where I had 2 videos with 2 gameplays each, you would have at least been able to see the AI do some of the character moves. Like, for instance, what Hinoka had just done there, those, like, slaps are actually a Bass move. Which is really kind of weird to see, like, a small female character doing the big hulking Bass moves and slapping Rydo here. And for some reason, the cow print on Hinoka's costume reminds me of a character named Dixie from Rumble Roses, because she always had the cow print on her outfit. And there was the special danger zone from this stage, which I thought was really cool. I don't remember if I actually triggered it before, or if it just had been a long time, but I was like, wow, that's really cool. And just as I had mentioned, your trophies and your unlocks don't actually carry over to the new version, so even though my my DLC carried over anything I had actually purchased, character costumes that are unlocked on one version of the game aren't unlocked in the other one, which would have kind of been nice if they were. But now here's my And the one thing that when I look at Mai's character in this game, it always reminds me of her appearance in the King of Fighters Maximum Impact series, as that was really the game where she was in like 3D, and they did it well, because in Fatal Fury Wild Ambition on the Neo Geo Hyper 64 and PlayStation game console, she was in 3D, but it was kind of that like really early 3D, and it didn't look that great. So a lot of the stuff she does here kind of shares with that game. And of course the latest King of Fighters game that was out at the time, she looks very similar in that game as well. And I could remember a lot of fans giving backlash when Mai was announced as the character, and a lot of people just want original characters, which was why a lot of people were happy when, for Tekken 7, the character that was released for that game, Leroy Smith, who was a very original character and not just, like, Zafina or one of the many characters for the Tekken series that's just been brought back. It's always cool when they're brought back to, like, a new game and they weren't included in the base game, but of course, a brand new character is always the best. And I know a lot of people, they don't really appreciate the guest characters, but sometimes when the characters actually are, like a really good character like Mai is here, I always think it's a nice little addition. And like I had mentioned before, this is that, Zac Island Stage that was actually given away for free in the earlier versions, and it was carried over to this game. And in the King of Fighters Maximum Impact, she actually always did that winning pose. And if you ever get to a stage and you see it looking down on the ground in Dead or Alive 5, you know you're always facing a Kiryuki. And just like in the Virtua Fighter series, a Kiryuki is always harder if he's like on a higher stage or a higher difficulty. If you get him like at stage 7 or stage 8, and it's a character that you're not good at, then he might be one of those characters that you lose to quite a few times. And of course, this is the stage that's the home stage from the story mode that was Brad Wong and Elliot's home. And the cool part about the stage I always liked is that you can like knock people through the walls and break the walls and the roof, and even go out into like the courtyard of this. And of course, if you're new to the Dead or Alive series, the one thing to know is that none of the guest characters or DLC characters ever have any part in the story. They're just added for like versus matches. And of course, here's Naotora in her nurse costume from her debut costume DLC. Yeah, this gameplay was one of the gameplays from before I had unlocked the OMG physics, so everything moves normally. Well, I think I had the DOA physics on, so it's a little more than normal, if you will. And that's one thing you have to do for Naotora, is so she won't take advantage of a lot of her fast moves, you have to be really fast when you're attacking her, or she'll just start going crazy on you and easily defeat you. And what I was mentioning before is that's another thing that I hear a lot of fans get mad about, is when an old character isn't included in one of these games and they're sold back to them as DLC. Many people don't get excited about an old character being re-added than they do about a brand new character. Because I can remember with Tekken 7, a lot of people were excited about Zafina from Tekken 6 getting back into Tekken 7, but there's some people who really didn't care and they're really waiting for that brand new character. But of course, with Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate, there was a lot of people who were excited about Maureen Rose as she's a new character, but a lot of them don't like her because she's that like stereotypical Japanese young character that all of them seem to like for some reason. And the funny thing about Dead or Alive 5, I can remember thinking, like, when the DLC was coming to an end, and they're like, oh, well, Dead or Alive 6 is coming around, and I was thinking, with all this downloadable content and new characters, it just feels like we've had so much Dead or Alive. I was thinking they should have taken a rest, but they didn't, and then a couple years later, they just released Dead or Alive 6. It just seemed like too close together. Kind of like how Mortal Kombat's gotten lately, where it seems like once they're kind of done on Mortal Kombat, they're just about to release the new one, and there's like no there's no like excitement about it, because it's not like one of those things where you go a couple of years without a new game or new support for the game, and then all of a sudden the new game's announced, and you're like, oh wow, that's awesome, I really want to play that now. It's kind of like they keep the community alive with the downloadable content. Well, as I mentioned earlier, at least the most hardcore fans. And then the new game is all of a sudden coming out of the blue because they've been in development for so long. Like I'd said here, since December 2017, Dead or Alive 6 was in development. That's why they stopped all the content and downloadable content updates. And now that was the intro to Phase 4, where I could actually know that it was her, and it wasn't Kasumi, but if you saw in my Rydo gameplay, that was the intro where she looked just like regular Kasumi, and you couldn't tell it was Phase 4 until you actually got into the match and heard the theme music. And now, of course, this is one of those classic Dead or Alive 5 stages that's been in the game since day one, which was one of the first stages that really showed off those interactive elements. And that's one of the best things that Dead or Alive 5 as a whole brought to the series, is basically much more active backgrounds instead of just them being fairly static. Now don't get me wrong, Dead or Alive 4 had some pretty cool ones where you'd have like dinosaurs and tigers and stuff in the background, but Dead or Alive 5 took it to a new level and really improved that. Of course, unlike its predecessors, Dead or Alive 5 kind of lost its way a bit with all the downloadable content and all the over-reliance on releasing smaller and smaller outfits for the female characters to attract people to this game. So, that's the biggest problem with Dead or Alive 5, is it kind of lost everyone's respect as a fighting game. And most people just don't even take Dead or Alive seriously anymore, and if you've never checked into it, Dead or Alive 6 pretty much does the same thing, so I'm guessing it makes the money, so they're never going to really stop until the series absolutely crashes and nobody cares to buy the DLC anymore. But it goes without saying, Dead or Alive 5 has been a great series. Maybe a little bit too heavy on the downloadable content, maybe a little too risque, if you will, but I guess they figure, you know, the good old adage, sex sells. But if you can get past all that stuff, there's still a good fighting game under all the fancy stuff and sex appeal. It's still a fun game in the end of the day, and I still would highly recommend, if you've never tried Dead or Alive 5, to give at least one of the games in the series a try, because it really is a fun series, and the story mode, which you've never seen in any of these videos I've done, is actually a pretty fun story mode. Now, it's not the best story you'll ever play in a fighting game, but it's pretty good. Especially for old school Dead or Alive fans who are really not used to, like, a real story mode other than, like, pre- and post-match things that a character will say. Well, that's been my Dead or Alive 5 last round videos, and I will see you in my next Dead or Alive or any other video. Bye.